I'm George Curtis. Welcome to It's Your Law. Each week it's my privilege to bring guests who teach all of us about the law. Its creation, its enforcement, its misapplication, and how it can be improved. We have a variety of guests from all walks of life. We have a variety of people who know things that I don't know, and maybe in some cases you don't know, about the law and how it affects all of us, and what we might want to do about it. Today we're going to be talking about newspapers. That's one of my bad habits. I'm not really apologizing. I couldn't pass a newspaper anytime I took a drive through any town. I read newspapers today, 3-4 hours. I was born and raised on newspapers. And yet a lot has taken place with newspapers since they were so important in the creation of this country and the development of our system. And yet I think they're more important than they ever have been before for our freedom, our education, and our children's future. Got somebody here who agrees with me. That's unusual. But I'm delighted to have Karen Schneider here. She's the publisher of a local paper fighting the fight here in Oshkosh, and it's called the Oshkosh Herald. Karen, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me today.
Well, how do you feel about the importance of newspapers?
Well, I wouldn't have put my retirement into coming out with a community newspaper if I didn't feel they were important. I mean, community news and having an informed community is a better community, and we need to know what's going on, what's impacting us, in order to do the right thing, in order to move along, in order to have good commerce, in order to have good politicians and elections. You have to know what is going on, and it needs to be fair and impartial, and hopefully what the product that we bring to the market in Oshkosh every week, that's our mission, is to help have a more informed community so we have a better life. Because a better life comes from having more information and knowing what you can do to impact your community, what's going on that you should probably know more about, and how to get involved and what to pay attention to.
Newspapers throughout the world, of course, are governed usually by government, which means that the information itself might be misinformation. In this country, a lot of news, I'm sure, is governed by government and special interests, also by big business and special interests. And let's be fair, the labor unions and the other points of view have their own papers. If they don't have one and they can't rent one, they'll build one. And so I've never, in my 84 years, seen so much misinformation, disinformation, conflicting information in my life.
It is out there, isn't it?
I'm looking. Yeah. I'm looking to newspapers to bail us out. Historically, what was the role of newspapers?
Newspapers are the fourth estate. They are to inform the community of what is going on. Investigate things, uncover things, be the eyes and ears of a community, overseeing the government. I mean, investigative journalism and covering the government are two of the most important jobs we have, because that is what affects all of us. So the fourth estate is very important. It's very important to protect, and we're seeing it. My opinion is that once it became a 24-hour news cycle and it was monetized, that impacted and changed the direction of how news was delivered. If you have stations out there, newspapers that only give one point of view, those are not impartial. That is not what the fourth estate is out there to do. The fourth estate is there to inform, provide information that is impartial and gives you the facts that you need to understand and make up your own mind. Once things went public and all of that good stuff, and the consumer, the reader, wasn't the number one customer, that impacted how news was being delivered.
So money
Money talks.
talks, and how has that developed in the newspaper industry? How big a clout is that?
That's huge. So, the majority of your dailies they're on the stock market. They have to deliver returns for their investors, right? So a lot of decisions are made on how do we deliver more money to our investors? How do we deliver that? That's their main focus, instead of we need to make sure that we have enough reporters and copy editors and everyone covering the news that's in our community, in our state, and delivering that. So there's been cuts that just slice away at the fourth estate. Pretty soon, you're going to have an apartment versus a mansion, so to speak, that delivered that news to the country. So money talks, and it makes a big impact. We are pretty much 100% advertising supported newspaper. That's very old school. You go back, and that we offer subscriptions outside of our delivery area, but 99% of our revenue comes from advertisers like you, which we appreciate. And so do our readers, because that is what enables us to deliver community news. And without that money, and personal investment, the Herald wouldn't exist. There are community newspapers popping up all over the place, because as people look to decrease expenses and put more of the product online, people still want that newspaper. They want to be able to turn the page. You cannot change a headline on a printed page. That headline is going to live on forever. And we're not going to be able to change what was written either. We're not going to go in and be able to do 3 corrections and 2 amendments and update it as the story goes along. This is the printed page. These are the facts that we are giving you as we know them today. So it doesn't become convoluted and cloudy. That is what's there. And, even, when you put something online, it can change. It changes all the time, or it disappears. And where is that news going? You need to be able to have that, share it, digest it, ingest it, be able to take the information and make your mind up, so that are you the news that's coming in, is this something you favor? Is it something you don't favor? Is it something that you're going to support, or are you going to be an advocate and make changes to it? Those are things you learn in a newspaper. It's the information that is giving out, and you have to take the money out of it, because it's sort of like if you build it, they will come. So at a small community level, like we are, we built it, and the readers have come, the advertisers have come, because we're filling a void of what other dailies and news sources have eliminated, based on cutting expenses to deliver the dollars. We're letting you know what's going on in your community. So we're not looking at. We want to make ends meet, but we're not looking at becoming millionaires. We have a mission of delivering local news, and that's what newspapers should be.
This is a good time to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Because we have to take our first break, but hold that thought. We'll be right back. Welcome back to It's Your Law. I'm George Curtis. My guest is Karen Schneider, and she's the publisher of a local paper, and I say local like I mean it. Everything, in my opinion, is local. All politics are local, business is local. I buy my gas locally, get my groceries locally, and the people who come to my law office are people in this area. Tell us, Karen, just how local is the Herald?
The Herald is, I would say, uber local. So our coverage area is Oshkosh. We do the Oshkosh Area School District. So if it doesn't happen within the Oshkosh market, it typically doesn't get covered. Now, we cover things that are impacting us, like COVID and different laws that will be coming down, but we cover Oshkosh. If you want to know what's going on in Oshkosh, that's what we cover. We launched because there was a perceived void of local news that covered government, sports, high school, I shouldn't say high school, but the school district itself, and local business. So we took that as a challenge to deliver what news people were looking for. So you have all kinds of different avenues, newspapers and different media that you can get the national news, the regional news, international news, and so forth. But when you're looking for what's going on in your own backyard, that's where we come into play. We let you know what's going on in Oshkosh. We cover the Planning and Commissions Board. We'll follow something from the first time it's introduced till the time it goes to the Common Council. We let you know what's coming up to try to avoid those surprises like, well, I didn't know they were talking about that. So, the Parks Department and so forth. So we let you know what is coming along, and hopefully we encourage you to participate and watch some of those events that are going along in government as well. But we let you know what's going on in our sports. Where's Oshkosh North going to play and how are they doing? And, Lourdes just went to won the state championship in basketball. So we're celebrating that. We actually had 4 pages of coverage for that. I mean, that's a big thing. Just like Oshkosh North won a few years ago, that's a big thing in a community our size, that you have one of your 4 high school teams make it all the way to state and bring back the gold ball. So, celebrating the things that are happening in our community, uncovering the things that we need all to be aware of, and not giving you how to think, but this is what is happening, so that you can determine on your own if you're for or against. One of the things we're pretty small, so we don't have a big staff. And one of the things that we took on, and you could call it investigative journalism, but it was when Barry Busby was the coroner, and we had several people calling us saying, ABC, this needs to be looked at. Well, we don't have the resources to do it, but we had a freelancer who was able to do it. So Miles McGuire, who is a former UWO professor in journalism, took that torch and was able to follow that and find out, what exactly this elected official was doing, and was he fulfilling his duties? And so action was taken on that. So there are different things that we have the capabilities to do within our own very, very small team, but we do use freelancers so that if there is something going on that we don't have the bandwidth to cover, but it's important to the community, we find the resource to be able to give that news.
That lack of local news with the chains must be universal. I formerly took the Merrill Herald, which then became the Wausau, Merrill, Marshfield, et cetera, Herald. I formerly took the Fond du Lac Reporter and the Appleton Post-Crescent and the Oshkosh Northwestern. And I still take the Northwestern, but I found they were all the same paper. They all had the same articles by the same authors, and I didn't find out anything critical or new by having 6 newspapers that I wouldn't get with one, and I didn't get anything that really made a difference in terms of what's going on at City Hall. And I think that's a critical addition that you have made to this community. And that's why I advertise, incidentally, successfully. People read the paper.
They do, and a little anecdote. So this last weekend, we went to one of our advertisers, and it was funny. My husband went in, and they were talking about it because they had a coupon, and someone said, "Well, why would you advertise in a newspaper?" It was actually the owner's daughter, and the 2 youngsters, well, I call them youngsters, they were 20-somethings, said, "Well, if I didn't read the newspaper, I wouldn't know what your dad was advertising," right? So it's not just people our age. We have younger people that are coming in who are realizing that if they want to be involved and informed about what's going on in Oshkosh, you need to pick up a newspaper. And for Oshkosh, fortunately, it's the Oshkosh Herald. Now, we do need the chains that are out there. Yes, you can go and they may have 10, 11 newspapers and they all have the front cover. but they have resources and deeper pockets to do things that we don't have the capabilities to. And it's typically not on a local level, it's more on a regional or statewide level, but they do good work, and there's information that still needs to be found in those newspapers. I mean, news is very important. Not everything is free. You know, we are a free model because we have the advertising support to put that out, but information costs money. Staff costs money. So in order to have a well-informed community, it needs to be supported, whether you're buying a subscription, whether you are taking that ad and using that local advertiser who supports that local community newspaper. It's all very important because it comes for full circle. If people were not supporting our advertisers, as you said, they would not be advertising in our product. But people do read the Herald. They do want to know what's going on in Oshkosh. And I'm fortunate to have a really good team that delivers on that.
Hold that thought. We've used up our time in this second segment, and I want to save plenty of time for the third one because I know it's very important. Like everything else that's worthwhile, there are new threats. There are threats all the time. And you're facing one, and I think the public should know about it. We'll be right back. Welcome back to It's Your Law. I'm George Curtis. Karen Schneider, who is the publisher of the Oshkosh Herald, is my guest. We share an interest, in fact, maybe a passion for newspapers, but you know, I can pick one up for $2 and some of them I get for free, although they're not free when you advertise in them. And I advertise in her paper because it's good for our business, it's good for the community, and people read it. However, like everything else, there are shadows out in the parking lot. There are always people who have different interests than you do, and they want to do things that peck away at your base. What's happening in the newspaper game?
Well, the big thing right now is a couple initiatives at the state legislature. So right now, public notices are published in a newspaper of record. Newspaper of record for our area is the Oshkosh Northwestern. So there's actually two different ones. The most important one is SB 55, which was put forward by Senator Fyon, which will eliminate the mandatory publishing of public meeting notes. So your minutes will no longer need to be published in a newspaper. They can just post them on a municipal website, and that's it. So I don't know about you, but there's not a whole lot of websites I go specifically to find bits and pieces of information. We're used to finding what's going on in the newspaper. So that one is very concerning that if that would pass. The problem there is that he's using it as, I want to save the taxpayers' money. Now, that's my opinion. He's using it as he wants to save the taxpayers' money. But if you break down the amount of funding that goes to a newspaper to publish and inform the community, it breaks down to about 15 cents per person per year. So I think there are other things out there that don't have as much impact as transparency in government that cost a lot more than 15 cents per person per year. So that one right now is passed the Senate and is in committee before it moves on to the Assembly. Now the other one that I've been working on since we launched actually is about the newspaper of record. So newspaper of record currently has that you have to have 50% paid distribution in order to be a certified newspaper of record. We obviously don't have 50% paid circulation. However, the paid circulation in our community is under 5,000, and we have 66,000 people that live in Oshkosh, right? So you have a daily newspaper with distribution under 5,000. We deliver by U.S. Postal Service to over 30,000 homes. We reach the people. So the whole thing is about being transparent. So it's a little archaic as newspapers have changed their business model, that government stays the same. So right now there is initiative AB 47 that has just been amended that will delete the word print, delete the word paid and put print, so that if it does pass through the committee and onto the floor and passes, that newspapers like the Oshkosh Herald will qualify and be able to compete the newspaper to be the newspaper of record. The reason that's important is because we want people to know what's going on in the community. I look at it as, do you want, if you're going out and have a restaurant, do you want just one person buying a burger while the other 11 from the dozen, grow old in the drawer? Or do you want people to know that there's a dozen burgers to be eaten? So we want to reach the people. We want them to know what is going on in government, and by being able to compete to be that newspaper of record, it increases the transparency of government and doesn't decrease it and put it in a closet. So that's our hope, is that this will move through. I'm very encouraged by the support that I've received. One, Shara here, Gordon Hintz, but also Representative Roth up in the Appleton area has been supportive of this, and Senator Kitchen, who is the one who actually brought it forward, and he brought it forward because he's up in Sturgeon Bay, and there's the Door County Peninsula Pulse that is very similar to the Oshkosh Herald in size, distribute. They distribute the same way we do. They have a very similar circulation, so they're reaching a lot more people and informing them what's going on in the community versus the paid product that's up there that by state statute right now qualifies to be the newspaper of record. So we're making changes because as the newspaper industry is changing, so does government. It needs to pick up, eventually will everything be digital? Personally, I hope not, but things will change. But right now, with the growth of community newspapers and the impact that they're having, they do need to look at that as an option so that government has the option of being more transparent and publishing in the product that they want to. For Oshkosh right now, let's talk about saving taxpayers money. City of Oshkosh has published notices in the Oshkosh Herald, although by state they were mandated to publish in the daily because they wanted people to see that. So if we're talking about saving taxpayers money and being responsible with those dollars, those kinds of ordinances have to change, those statutes have to change to keep up with the changing business model that paid newspapers are having.
So the fight never ends. You have to constantly improve the product. You have people who are checking on all the local political issues, the school board, the county board, the city council, and all of the things that are going on with school sports, and you have to pay these people. Mm-hmm. And even though you got into it because of your passion, like I got into what I do because of the passion, if you can't pay the bills, you're on your way out. And to pay the bills, you have to understand that you have to be a lobbyist, because the people in Madison can turn you upside down, ride you hard, and put you away wet with just one bill, and you are going to be marked done. It's an endless fight.
It is.
And I so respect what you're doing and the product you're bringing to this particular community, which is why I invited you, and that's why I keep advertising. And I've got some pressure here to actually advertise more frequently and bigger.
Oh, awesome.
At the moment, I can't afford it, but it's paying off so far. I want to thank you so much
Thank
for
you for
being
having
on the
me.
show.
I appreciate it.
Keep fighting, and we'll be right back. Anyone who's been following the news and the recent national and local elections realize that there are lots of problems in this country. We all want to make America great again, but those of us who've thought about it realize that the word again doesn't belong in that sentence. America has always had problems living up to its ideals. It was great if you were privileged, if you were white, if you were born into a successful, wealthy family. But for many people, it wasn't. The newspapers played a big part in keeping us aware of the unfortunate, unfair aspects of our country. The last elections showed how much special interest disinformation was exposed, and many people bought into it and are still buying into the conspiratorial theories. Good, straight newspapers are more important to this country than anything else. Honest information, informed citizens who get involved. Free information, freedom to go to the polls and vote, right to a jury trial are the weapons that every citizen has to exercise their vigilance, and that will make America great. I'm George Curtis.